with that, I'd like to call the meeting back into open session. There's no action from closed session, and the board will be reconvening to closed session after the regular open session is complete. At this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order, and if everyone could please stand with me and face the flag. Ready? Begin.
Which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, with that, we're on to item G, recognitions. The first one we have is celebration of migrant speech and debate students and coaches. Jennifer, I believe that's going to be you.
This is a very proud moment for Fillmore Unified School District, for the city of Fillmore. And I'd like to thank, before we start, all the participants, not just those who won. We're really appreciative for those who participated. And many times participation is more important than even winning, that you stepped up. So we expect to see all of you, except for the seniors, back next year with twice as many trophies as we've seen today. So the challenge is on. And I think we're going to have more winners next year. Thank you very much. And Jennifer, you're on.
Okay, well, good evening. I'm Jennifer Weir, the Special Populations Coordinator here at Fillmore Unified. Bienvenidos a todos los padres que están aquí para celebrar sus estudiantes. And good evening, students and coaches. We're here to celebrate you this evening and all of your achievements this year in the speech and spelling and speech and debate tournaments, both regional and state. And so what we're going to do is you're going to get a little exercise because you're going to stand up so we can recognize you. And what we're going to first do is we're going to recognize every student, and I have a picture here from the speech and spelling tournaments. You can see everyone. This is on the day of our tournament. And so if you participated in this year's regional speech and spelling tournament, will you please stand up so we can recognize you? Thank you. You may be seated. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to call the winners from the speech and spelling tournament. And so if you hear your name, please stand up. And this is regional, the county tournament, the county regional tournament. So I'm going to start from Piru School. We have, and if you're not here, then that's okay, I'm going to go on to the next person. Janet Ramos, 5th grade, first place prepared. Amy Ramos, 4th grade, 3rd place prepared. Giovanni Figueroa, 4th place, 2nd place, extemporaneous. And Jacqueline Naganya is not here this evening because she's at science camp, but we could recognize her this evening. And Jacqueline won 3rd place prepared and 1st place extemporaneous. Okay, thank you, Piru students. You may be seated. The next group of students I'd like to recognize is from Sespe School. We have a 4th grade spelling team, number 3. Isabella Rodriguez, Anaí Pascual, and Sandra Maria. I think you had a trophy. Where's that trophy? You should be holding that trophy. Show everyone your trophy! And I'd like to recognize their coach as well From Peru, it was Christina Silby and Mary Schrofer. And from CESP, it was Bill Chavez. And that should have covered all of the students that went in the speech and spelling tournament. Is there anyone that I missed from speech and spelling tournament? Okay, so thank you. We're going to move on to the regional speech and debate tournament. So this tournament was 6th through 12th grade, and we had about 19 students that participated. Should go back. The speech and spelling tournament was 4th and 5th grade, and we had about 25 students, 30 students that participated. And so fast forwarding again. We're going to recognize 6th through 12th grade speech and debate regional. If you participate in that tournament, will you please stand up so we can recognize your efforts? Speech and debate regional. Thank you. You may be seated. And from Fillmore Middle School, I'd like to recognize Brianna Vargas, 6th grade. She won 2nd place prepared. Julissa Fregoso, 8th grade, 1st place prepared and 1st place extemporaneous.
Two first place, right?
That is correct. Well, actually more, but that's coming up.
That's coming up.
At the regional, 2 first place. And Andrea Diaz, 8th grade, 2nd place prepared and 2nd place extemporaneous. And their coaches, Jenny Bortons and Jennifer Beal. From Fillmore High School, I'd like to recognize several winners. Viridiana Quintana, 9th grade, 1st place prepared and 1st place extemporaneous. Benelli Arevalo, 10th grade, 1st place prepared, 2nd place extemporaneous. Jesus Mendoza, 10th grade, 3rd place prepared, 1st place extemporaneous. Fabiola Palmarin, 11th grade, 3rd place prepared, 3rd place extemporaneous. Daniela Valdovinos, 10th grade, 2nd place prepared in Spanish, 2nd place extemporaneous Spanish. Beatriz Tovar Salcido, 11th grade, 2nd place prepared Spanish, 1st place prepared extemporaneous. And last but not least, Fillmore High School, 1st place English debate team. Luis Montejano, 12th grade. Itzel Iniguez, 12th grade. Mabel Hernandez, 12th grade. Samarí François, 12th grade. Mariela Figueroa, 9th grade. Congratulations to all of you. And last but not least, their coaches, Jennifer Fitzpatrick and Nancy Kirkpatrick. And so to all of you, coaches and students, congratulations on your achievement at the regional tournaments this year.
How many trophies did we take away?
Oh.
How many awards out of how many?
I do know at the 6th to 12th grade tournament, we had 19 students and 24 trophies that we took home on the bus. So we're a little bit outnumbered in a good way. And so once again, congratulations on your participation. As I was speaking with Mr. Mendoza just this afternoon and telling him about the recognition we were doing this evening, and he said, you know, Fillmore did really well this year. They took a lot of trophies. That's right. So he's very proud of all of you as well. And so I'm going to pass the microphone to Mr. Garnica, who is going to recognize the students that made it all the way to this
You
stage.
announce them and he'll give the award.
Perfect, okay. And so the state tournament, we went to Sacramento. There were 9 students, 5 on the debate team and 4 on the speech team, 4 presenting speeches. And our students did very well. The competition was tough, and they held their heads high and made not only our region proud, but Fillmore proud. And so we want to recognize them tonight. We just went there a couple weeks ago. And so we do have, well, let's do this. If you went to the state tournament, please stand up so we can recognize you. State tournament. And we have 3 students that won at this tournament. The first one is from Piru School, Jacqueline Magana, who's at science camp. Sixth grade, 3rd place prepared. So we can go ahead and give her a round of applause. From Fillmore Middle School, Julissa Fregoso in 8th grade won 1st place prepared and 1st place extemporaneous.
Many more years. She's an 8th grader, right? Oh, man. Good job.
Once again, Julissa Fregoso. And from Fillmore High School, we'd like to recognize Beatriz Tovar Salcido, 11th grader. She won 1st place prepared Spanish and 2nd place extemporaneous speech in Spanish. And once again, I'd like to recognize their coaches from Piru, Mary Schrofer, from Fillmore Middle School, Jenny Bortons and Jennifer Beal, and Fillmore High School, Jennifer Fitzpatrick and Nancy Kirkpatrick. Thanks to all of you for your hard work. And there's one more person that I know is here, but I don't know where she is. Maria Gonzalez, are you in the room right now? Oh, okay. I'd like to just recognize Maria for all of her hard work in putting together the tournaments. There's a lot of paperwork and permission slips and phone calls and letters home, and we couldn't have done all this work without Maria's help. So, Maria, thank you. And so that concludes our recognition. I'm going to pass.
We have one more recognition, and that's for Jennifer Weir, who really takes this seriously and just loves her kids. So let's give a big round of applause. I'm not sure you realize this, but this is a state tournament that the last students participated in. That's all of the state of California. Usually if you win a state trophy, I don't care if it's track and field, or football, or baseball, you're celebrated. We think this is even greater than those. We have a debate team, we have speeches, students speaking about Spanish and English, and we are so proud, and next year it's even going to be better. We encourage each one of you who participated, especially those in elementary school, you continue. And some of you that we have, 8th graders, 9th graders, 10th graders, we expect a lot more coming. Bigger trophies than those, because they always give you big ones every year. So you can look for the bigger ones every year. So I want to thank your parents for being here as well and supporting your children. You should be very proud. We are proud in Fillmore Unified for what your children have done. It is an accomplishment. You need to cherish this day. You need to remember that this is going to be your future. The ability to communicate, the ability to speak in front of groups, the ability to think on your feet and talk about a subject that you don't know you have to talk about, those are great skills. So when you get out of school, you'll be well prepared to meet the challenges of this global economy where being bilingual is going to be extremely valuable. My daughter is trilingual, so it's a great advantage. People are looking for those who can speak more than one language. So I encourage you to keep both languages and be proficient in both. Don't slight one for the other. Let's really make Fillmore proud as you go through the system and come back to business. When you're out and you're in the job market out there, you've been through college, you've been through school, wherever you go, come back in 10 years and say, I remember when you had a board meeting and you honored us. This is what I'm doing today. Nothing makes teachers, parents, and people prouder when you come back and say, I made it. And thank you very much. I want to thank you. Let's give a big round of applause.
Okay, the next recognition we have is the Migrant Student of the Year. The Migrant Student of the Year this year is Jonathan Gonzalez. Jonathan Gonzalez is a senior at Fillmore High School. His education started in the Migrant Even Start program and has benefited from attending the Migrant Summer School and PASS program. This past summer, he was chosen by UCLA to attend their Migrant Scholars Leadership Institute. Jonathan has also been a member of the TRIO program with the University of Channel Islands for the past 4 years. He's taken honor and advanced placement courses throughout his high school and is an avid and mentor program. And Jonathan has also played football and baseball at Fillmore High School. In the Migrant program, he has volunteered at homework centers, summer school, and at the office. In the community, he's been involved in Relay for Life for the past 5 years and has been captain of his own team for the past 2. In addition, he also helps organize events for migrant families in his neighborhood. Jonathan was recognized as the Migrant Student of the Year at the annual Family Migrant Conference in Ventura, where he received several awards. Jonathan plans to attend the University of Oregon in the fall. By obtaining a college education, he hopes to be a good example to the students of his community in Rancho Sespe and a good role model to all migrant students. So Jonathan, please come up for your recognition. The next recognition we have is the Migrant Parent of the Year. The Migrant Parent of the Year this year is Ms. Maria Pascual. Let me read a little bit about, we're going to read a little bit about Maria. Mrs. Maria Pascual is the parent of 2 students in the Fillmore Unified School District. The best interest of Ms. Pascual is the education of her daughters. She's a member of the Migrant Advisory Committee and a volunteer in the Migrant Program Office, helping to prepare supplies for the students. At her daughter's elementary school, she helps the teacher in the classroom. Mrs. Pascual participates in the conferences and workshops the Migrant Program and her school district offer. She also attends the Migrant English classes to better her education and be an example of achievement for her daughters. In this way, she inspires them to succeed in their own educational goals. So, congratulations to Mrs. Maria Pascual. Okay, for this next recognition is the staff appreciation, and we're going to have Mr. Todd Shefferly go ahead and recognize the staff.
Hello, everybody hear me? I want to say that Staff Appreciation Week, we're celebrating it this week for teachers and classified staff. They're spread out, and so what we do is we pick the week in the middle, and we have some baskets out at sites. But what I want to say is thank you to all the staff that are here tonight for all you do every day in helping our students succeed, like what we witnessed tonight. So thank you, staff.
Okay, the next item on the agenda will be communications.
We're gonna break, right? Oh, you want to take a break? Okay. Okay, this is a treat, so I want to take the microphone. We're going to take a 10-minute break in the back, in the hallway. We'll let the students go first. Quietly, don't drop your trophies. We have cookies, punch, and drinks out in the hallway. So in 10 minutes, we'll be coming back. So I know Mr. Farrell is not leaving yet, right? No, okay, so will the students please quietly, there's plenty of time, stand up, walk up there and get your cookies and your punch. Watch out for your trophies, guys. We'll be back in about 10-15.
In about 3 minutes, we'll let the adults rush back here.
Okay, at this point, we're on to item H, communications. With that, I'll hand the mic over to the superintendent, Dr. Alan Machino.
Thank you, John. Just a couple of real brief comments. First is, I keep saying this, but that's a very proud moment for Fillmore. And I know that the press will put it in the paper, and that we need to celebrate this, but it's, like I said, it's just the tip of the iceberg what our kids can do. Second piece is, you all know about the budget. It's grown to $16.9 billion, in debt. The governor is trying to find ways to backfill because the revenue didn't come in as projected. Everybody sort of knew that when he was coming out with his projections. People were saying, I don't believe that you think that we're going to have that much revenue. But that's how politicians basically balance the budget, is they over-project revenue, and then when it doesn't come, then they cry, well, you know, it's everybody else's fault. So I don't know what the answer is going to be. I know that it's going to be a very tough year. People have been gearing up, holding money in the bank. Luckily, they did. Those that didn't are going to suffer, because whatever the reserve is, it's for this year, next year, or the year after. So you have to have an equal, a balanced budget. And you do know that every year, whether or not we get a COLA or any money, that it costs us roughly 1.5% that we have to backfill meaning that we have to pay out in expenditures because of step and column and other obligations that we are required to do, including any increase in workers' comp issues, any increase in insurance. Those are all things that we have to be able to backfill or pay for. So obviously there's a COLA. It's a deficit COLA, Dr. Bush?
Completely deficit.
Completely deficit COLA, which means you get a 2 point whatever this COLA, but by the way, you don't get it. We're going to put it over here, and someday you'll get it. How many years are they behind already?
4.
4 years behind the COLAs that we're supposed to get. So every year we're supposed to get a COLA. That usually will offset the increase in step and column, which it is not. So that means every year we have to cut about 1.5% every year. Every year we have to cut 1.5% of our budget because we're not getting new monies in. And that's how we're funded. So districts across the state have been trying to be as conservative as possible, knowing that probably next year there won't be a COLA, it'll be deficit, and probably the year after it'll be deficit of COLA. And even if the governor's tax initiative passes, it just means we don't cut as much. We still cut. If it doesn't pass, we cut more. So it's almost a lose-lose for us. But this is not something that just happened. This has been almost a decade of spending without really understanding that it's how you balance a checkbook. My dad told me long ago, there's only 2 ways you balance a checkbook. You increase your revenue or you cut your spending. period. That's the only way you balance a checkbook. We have not done that. We continue to spend, we have no money coming in, so pretty soon you're what they call deficit spending. And unfortunately for most businesses and us, there are fixed costs that always have to go out. And you can't change that unless you cut personnel, or cut buying merchandise, or increase the amount of widgets you produce. Unfortunately, we don't produce widgets. We just accept them. You know, the kids are the widgets. So the more kids are coming into our schools, then we get that revenue. It's still 47th funded per pupil in the United States. Out of 50 states, we are 47th in funding per child. And yet they expect us to cut more and provide more and do better for our kids when they've continued to cut the budget. And I challenge you to find a business that keeps losing money that can continue to produce a great product and stay in business. Yeah, we've been doing that for years. So I appreciate the cooperation we've had to try to balance this budget. It is a very difficult thing to do, very difficult. But our primary focus will be on how do we educate our children, and that will be our focus. How do we educate our children in spite of what the state does to us, in spite of what they do to us. And so it's going to be very challenging the next couple of years. Second piece is talk a little bit about how do I put this? I've said it before, and I'll say it again. You should be proud to be in Fillmore. You should be proud of how hard our staff, both classified and certificated, and our administrators have worked so hard to provide a quality education on a shoestring budget. I've never seen a budget this tough to balance. Yet everybody's, you know, my dad used to say, you pull yourself up by the bootstraps, tighten the buckle a little bit, the belt, and then you move on. And we're going to do that, and our kids are going to win. I guarantee you, every year our kids are going to do better, and that's the goal. We're about kids, not adult drama. We're about how can we make our kids prepared when they get out in the world. And I think if everybody will do that, I think we'll have a good chance of having more of this kind of celebration. Our next celebration will be the transition out of bilingual, out of our EL program. So it's called reclassification. Reclassification. Those students who came from Spanish and now transitioned out into English, that's a celebration. I challenge any of you to go to Mexico, stay there for a couple of years, and then be fluent in the language. I took 2 years of French, and all I know is bonjour. I grew up in a Japanese family, and if I say arigato, everybody's shocked. That's how difficult it is to really capture a new language. Yet our students come here, and it's our job to make sure they become good American citizens here that can be successful. And we're doing it. And we're going to continue to do it. And we're going to do it better every year, because our kids deserve it. Mr. Johnson and myself talk about it, how fortunate we are to be here, to be in a place where we have such good kids. Every time you get a kid that maybe steps off a little bit, but overall, Mr. Johnson and I have been around, this is a great place to be for kids. It's a great place to rear your kid. Whether you believe it or not, I'm telling you, just go on the other side of the hill over there and tell me if it is not true. I don't think anybody else over there has anything they want to say. Okay, we have enough on our plate today. So thank you for the report, but you know, really, think about how we can support our schools and make them even better. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nishino. With that, we're on to item L, public comment on agenda items and non-agenda items and petitions. This is the time and place to address the school board. State law prohibits the board from acting on issues not included on the agenda. However, requests may be made for discussion of specific topics at subsequent meetings. Upon recognition by the president of the board, please come forward and identify yourself before speaking. The Board of Education reserves the right to limit speaking time to 3 minutes or less per individual. In front of me, I have 2 speaker cards. And the first one that I have is Mr. Tron Burdick. If you could please step forward and address the board.
Good evening, members of the board. You know, it's really kind of bittersweet, or should I say sweet bitter, that I hear appreciation to the staff, and then in just a little bit, you're going to be voting on additional cuts to classified employees, in addition to the 17 that took place last month. So, you know, that's hard. You know, we appreciate that you like the way we work and stuff, but we always feel that, you know, the disproportional share of cuts always comes down to the classified workers, because that's the easiest place to make cuts. But my real purpose in speaking to you tonight is that the bearer of bad news, and I want to talk about the labor relationship that we are having with the district at this point. I've been at negotiation tables for 10 years. I've been at negotiation tables with CSEA for over 24 different districts. And never have I been in such difficult negotiations and labor relations as I have here at Fillmore. Ever. You have temporary employees doing our work in offices. You laid off a mechanic who you're contracting out his work. And at this time, we have been approved to move forward with litigation on that matter, on those 2 matters. Those are violations of Ed Code. In negotiations, we asked for information which is not given to us in a timely manner. In this very specific incident, I requested information as to the effects of the proposal on health benefits. I had to ask 6 times before in a 2.5-month period, before I finally received that information. And then that information affects the health benefits of over 70% of the classified employees, either eliminating or them having to pay out. No one else in this district is going to have to do that, but that's what they're asking us to classify. When we give proposals, they are being ignored outright. Not one proposal that we have given has the district accepted in part in any way. In fact, it is so bad that one proposal that counter proposal we just gave them was rejected, even though it contained language that the district proposed in another article. So it was approved in one article, but when we proposed it, the very same language was denied. That's bad faith bargaining. That's surface bargaining. That's an unfair labor practice. And I would think that you as the board would want the district to come to a equal and cooperative negotiations that's fair to both parties. And I ask that you, as the boss of this district, the 5 of you are the boss of this district, the boss of everyone in here. And I would ask that you guys not step into negotiations, because that's not your role, but it is your role to guide and lead the people who are at your negotiating table. So that's what I ask of you. Thank you.
Next, I have a speaker card for Lola Rogers. Lola, if you could please step forward and address the board.
My name is Lola Rogers. I'm CSEA president, and I have some documentation for everybody. I'm here to speak on the 5 furlough days that was requested of us. I can't. Thanks. There has been a question as to why the negotiating team for CSEA has not wanted to discuss the 5 extra furlough days for the 2013 school year. First, we wanted to wait for the May revise. It seems that if there was a resolution laying off teachers as soon as the information from the May revise became available, the teachers' notices were rescinded. Not so with the classified staff. For the past 2 years, we have lost several full-time positions. It has been presented to us from the district's negotiating team that everyone must agree to the furlough days in order to save jobs. However, classified jobs are still lost. The district's negotiating team says we must all make the sacrifice. They say that the teachers are making the sacrifice, the supervisory confidential group is making the sacrifice, and that management is making the sacrifice. The district's negotiating team is lying. In 2011, all these groups agreed to 5 furlough days. At least that is what the district wanted us to believe. In July of 2011, a prior year payroll was processed. The Director of Human Resources received not 5, but 10 extra days of pay. The Assistant Superintendent of Finance received not 5, but 10 extra days of pay. The superintendent received 83% of his normal monthly salary, almost $10,000. With benefits, this came to over $22,000. I believe that there were some principals that were also received extra pay, so I'm asking for more detailed information to determine this. In the reports I received, I noticed that there were differences in the budget as to what the board approved and what was actually spent. These discrepancies and overpayments came to over $80,000. That's more than a full-time classified position. CSEA does not argue that the state of the economy is terrible, but we do not appreciate being lied to in negotiations. If the district's negotiating team is lying about this, what else are they lying about? At our last labor relations, Michael Johnson spoke to Sheila Duckett and myself regarding retaliation. I told him that I would not be surprised if my position was listed on the next resolution to eliminate positions. He said, no, that would not happen. And yet, now my position is on the resolution. If the district feels that my position is not needed, then so be it. But I will not go away. I will remain as president of CSEA, and I will continue fighting for our members. Thank you.
Thank you, Lola.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we're on to item J, which is a public hearing. Pursuant to Government Code Section 6062, subparagraph A and 65090, paragraph 2, the Governing Board of Fillmore Unified School District will hold a public hearing to consider a resolution to adopt a developer fee justification study. Okay, this is resolution number 11-12-14, level 1 basic developer fee for the governing board of Fillmore Unified School District, Ventura, California. Adoption of school facilities fees. So we're going to open a public hearing. Public hearing is now open. Would anyone care to address the board regarding the proposed developer fees? Anyone wanting to address the board? I know Michael, Mike, did you want to say anything about it?
I'll speak on the resolution.
Okay. So with that, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Okay, with that, we're on to item K, information discussion. Item 1 is Teaching Strategies Task Force report, and that's Cynthia Frutos. Cynthia, if you could please come forward.
Yeah, let me introduce this item. As you know, we have 9 task forces in the district, and we've, I think, had about 8 or 7 task forces in the presentation to the board. We still have 1 task force left, and I think they'll be giving a presentation on the 29th, the next board meeting. Tonight, we have another task force, Teaching Strategies Task Force, and this particular group focused on a systemic, district-wide plan on including and incorporating teaching strategies in our classrooms. And this is the presentation that you will hear tonight. The task force has involved many of our other staff in the district, schools and other administrators who gave input. And they're not quite finished yet, but I think we're about there. And they'll also talk about plans in terms of how to roll it out to the schools, so it's just not on a piece of paper, but it's actually a living document. The person who chaired and facilitated this particular task force is Ms. Cynthia Frutos, and very proud of her work, and the members of the task force, their contribution to the product that you're about to hear tonight. So, Ms. Frutos, the floor is yours.
Can everyone hear me, or do I need a mic? Thank you so much, Michael, for that introduction. Honorable members of the board, the audience as well. My name is Cynthia Frutos, and as Michael just introduced me, I did chair this committee. And before I begin, I would just like to give you a little background on who was in our group. And as part of this task force, Michael Johnson worked very hard to set up these systems in place under the supervision of Dr. Nishino. And what we've done is we got together as teachers and administrators and group members. I'm going to introduce them, and they will actually be speaking as well. Jennifer Weir, who is our ELD and migrant coordinator. She was part of the task force representing the ELD and migrant population. We also have Diana Vitas, who's administrator from Piru School, who represented the elementary level. And then we have a wonderful teacher, Jenny Bortons, from the middle school, representing the middle school side. Works very hard. I wanted to recognize your efforts too, Jenny, for that. And then another wonderful teacher who represents Fillmore High School, and that's Erin Seebeck, who also did a tremendous job in bringing that aspect to the group. So what I wanted to do is, when we got together, make sure that we had input from all levels, of all facets of our group, so that when we put something together, it was something that could be applicable for universal strategies. Now with that, it was a collaborative process. I just explained who was in our group. And what we did is, when we got together and we created these these teaching strategies, we wanted to make sure that they were universal strategies, just not grade level specific. So after we got together, there were research-based strategies. Then we solicited feedback from our sites. Feedback so that our teachers, it was an inclusive process, so that we had the voice of everyone that would then guide us into where we're at. Finally, after that, we went through our secondary curriculum meetings, presented our findings, presented what we will be presenting to you tonight, and then we received more additional feedback from staff. And what I wanted to do is make sure that I included a special thanks to a few people that are here. John Wilbur, his video productions class from Fillmore High School, was an integral part of this presentation, and you'll see that in a few. Mr. Wilbur, thank you so much. Your boys worked very hard. We were up pretty late last night trying to get this video that we'll be showing tonight. And then Chrissy Shefferly, your teacher, Reina Arellano from Mountain Vista School. Thank you so much for having her participate in our presentation tonight. We're not done. We're going to continue with this videotaping. We're going to show you a snippet of what we did. What we're looking at are the stellar teachers here in this district. When you're looking at universal teaching strategies, you're looking at teaching strategies that are going to have high yield results. We have some wonderful teachers here in Fillmore, and what we want to do is make sure we highlight those teachers. And Reina Arellano is one of our best and brightest here at Fillmore Unified. Last but not least, I just wanted to thank Dr. Nishino and Michael Johnson, because what you've done is you're setting up systems in place. These systems are helping us move our district forward. They're giving us a goal. They're providing a goal for our students to move forward, to be recognized, to bring us out of PI status in some of our school sites. So thank you so much for providing that direction and allowing us to move forward with this in the district. So this is something Jennifer Weir had included as part of our presentation. We've been doing things for many years here in Fillmore. We've all seen this. It becomes cliche after a while. But what we're doing, as I just explained, Dr. Nishino and Michael are setting systems in place so that we can move forward, get out of that PI status, and looking at collaboratively working together, working on goals together, setting up goals, teaching strategies. One goal for next year is checking for understanding. We're looking at moving forward and constantly going forward with our students. I'm going to go ahead and pass this over now to Jenny Bortons, who's going to explain one component of our task force, and then each one of us will present. Afterwards, we'll open it up for any questions that you may have, but thank you for your time.
As Cynthia said, we want to draw on people's strengths in the district, and so one of the things we wanted to do is provide the teachers that we have with tools for their toolkit. That's what Cynthia called it. It was a great way to phrase it. A lot of teachers know good teaching strategies, but sometimes in the hectic job that is teaching, they get lost, and they need to be reminded of what they are. So a lot of what we put together is highlighting those best strategies, those high-yield strategies, the things that teachers can use in their classrooms and get best results. And what you see up there is Bloom's taxonomy. We felt that this was an excellent tool for teachers to use. It helps them take students from, if you look at the bottom, this bottom to top, from kind of rote memorization, basic factual learning, and deepen that and widen that so that their knowledge that they're acquiring isn't just a fact, but they can apply it and they can move with it and create with it and take it to the next level so that we're moving our students forward in each lesson that we're teaching. So we had envisioned this being, for every teacher, something they can use each day to just make their lessons better than they were before. And this is something that's very helpful for teachers in the district because a lot of, well, not a lot, we have some sites that are under the auspices of the AGB, and this is one of the requirements of that team, is that this be implemented. So by providing it to teachers, they have a tool that they need to be using anyways, and that is proven to be effective. For myself, I know I've been using it more in my lessons this year, and I found that my students, when I first would introduce some of the higher levels of Bloom's taxonomy, they would freak out and shut down and not even try it. But after scaffolding and working with them throughout the year, now it's not even a thing for them. They like it, they can do it, they move on. And so it's something that can work if you stick with it and implement it, and we feel very strongly it would be a useful tool. Oh, I'm sorry, Erin, feedback, we'll continue.
Thank you, good evening. What I wanted to focus on was this document here, the teaching strategies document. A major focus for our group was putting together a list of strategies that teachers could have on a day-to-day basis when they're planning for their lessons, things to give them new ideas, new ways to incorporate teaching vocabulary, for example, or checking for understanding. So as a group, we put together this list of teaching strategies focusing on specific parts of the lesson. Altogether, our goal in creating this list was to help teachers to increase the rigor of the lessons in their classroom, to help them to utilize more technology in their classroom, to help their students to develop academic vocabulary as well as writing skills, and allow for modification for our English language learners as well as our special ed students. Teachers will be receiving a copy of this document electronically because many of these strategies do have links that are attached to take them to different websites, whether it's for, additional information on research or even fantastic demonstration lessons. The first part of the document focuses on opening of the lesson. And it gives teachers strategies that would immediately engage their students. As soon as they walk in their door, we're going to grab their attention and we're going to focus them in on the day's task. We want to tie in previous lessons as well as preview the upcoming lesson and give them tools to do that differently every day if they choose. The bulk of it then is the delivery of the lesson. We wanted to, as I said, increase the rigor that teachers were teaching at, give them many different strategies for incorporating writing, incorporate Bloom's taxonomy and the higher level thinking, getting them above and beyond that rote memorization, as well as giving students a chance to every day read, speak, and write. And then finally, with the closing of the lesson, sorry about that, we wanted to give teachers strategies to provide students with instant feedback on how well they had met the lesson's goals for the day. In addition to this document electronically, teachers will have the option of getting posters for their classroom with the strategies. We have an example up here to my right, as well as each site will be receiving a fun engagement ring with laminated instructional strategies. This is produced by the Ventura County Office of Education, and it's similar to this document, just in a little bit cuter format, I think. And you can simply open it up and say, what's a fishbowl? I can come up with some sort of fun little lesson to go with that for the day. So it's just a way to inspire teachers, give them new instructional strategies, and they're applicable for all grade levels and all level of students. So we're very excited about it, and I think it'll be an effective tool for teachers to have. With that, I'm passing over to Jennifer Weir.
Part of the opening, delivering, and closing is that we will have embedded links so that so teachers will be able to access more information on opening, delivering, and closing. So there'll be just more resources that will help teachers if they want to know what that strategy is. Okay, let me just switch gears here. Okay. Sorry for the technical difficulty, we're right back. And what I wanted to share with you is that what we're going to be doing is videotaping some of our exemplar teachers here in the district. And we want to be able to show the instructional strategies, some of the ones that we've found to be research-based and that will cover the gamut of the lesson from opening, delivering, and closing. And so when we do that, we'll be working, we started working with Fillmore High School's video production team, and they actually helped put together the video you're about to preview. And so our goal is to be able to post those on the website. So if a teacher is planning their lesson and what is checking for understanding, they can go on the district website, watch a quick video, and just remember what that strategy is, what it looks like. And so, so this will be a work in progress, and what we're going to show you today is a snippet on Reina Ariana, which is Fillmore Unified's Teacher of the Year, and this is a fourth grade lesson. She's a teacher at Mountain Vista School, and so what we also want to make sure is that we cover not only elementary but middle school and high school, because we are a unified district. And instructional strategies need to be used at all grade levels. And so it'll be important so teachers can really relate to that lesson, or the strategy being shown, that it's not only just elementary, but it's across the different grade levels. So we're starting here with fourth grade, and pretty much what you're going to see, just to give you a preview, is we're gonna preview checking for understanding. So here we go.
Are the words that are next to
are going to be this. And our team has done a great job of putting it all together. But many times that's what happens. We do a nice job, we begin these initiatives, and then nothing happens with it. So our team is committed so that this is information that gets out to everybody, that actually gets into the classroom, that gets inputted, and more importantly, it gets to students, because that's where we really make a difference. So the first thing is, as you've been told, we're going to be making these posters. In the committee meetings, we've been talking about what is the best use. Initially, we were thinking of putting it in the classroom. We're getting feedback, and teachers are saying we don't need them in the classroom because of space. So we're going to make some modifications. Most likely, we'll be giving them directly to teachers, and they'll be putting in their plan books. Because as teachers plan, they need to remember that it's really important to have your opening that's very strong, that when you deliver the lesson, there's certain things that need to be done. And lastly, closing of the lesson is just as important as opening the lesson, because if we don't have students evaluating their objective at the end, they don't remember what they learned, they don't cement the information in their brain, and it's not as meaningful. So every portion of the lesson is very valuable, and we want teachers to have that access so that they understand and they do the best for our students. The other thing is the video clips. This was just the beginning. We plan to do so much of this. We don't want it to be such an overwhelming task, so there are a lot of video clips already on there on YouTube. There's a book that we have as a committee that's from Marzano, and this already has a lot of clips in there. So we'll be using everything that's available to us. We'll be gathering all that information, and we'll be putting it on a website so that teachers have access to that. So as they're delivering their lessons, as they're writing their lessons, because that's such a big component of all of our schools, they have these tools for them. But aside from that, we want even more. Not only for it to be a website where teachers can turn to, but we want it to be a big district initiative. So what we have is some plans as to how it's all going to be rolled out. First and foremost, our district is committed to this, so they are going to be using all of the resources that we have in our school site and at our district, and they're going to be training the administrators. The administrators will then be turning around and training our chairs that are going to be at each school site, our grade level teams. They're going to be trained, and then they will be training the teachers. So it'll be from the top down, bottom up implementation, so that everyone is supported, and we're all on the same team, and we're all tapping into the best resources of our school, our stellar teachers that are all going to be learning from each other and teaching each other. Aside from that, we're committed as a task force, and we want to be meeting regularly so that we look at what's going on, and we don't want this to be just something that began, but something that's followed through, and it's very useful for the students. And lastly, we'll revisit it on a yearly basis to make sure that it's for the use of our students and it's a good tool for teachers. So now questions and answers that you may have. And I'll revert back to our leader.
One thing that we wanted to add, one of the teachers that was on our task force wanted to know if we can possibly also create some sort of blog for teachers. So not only to fill their tool bag full of these useful strategies, but if they have a question, a blog within the district so that teachers can go in and say, hey, does anyone, I tried this checking for understanding strategy, it didn't work in this area, or this area was really worked out really well for me, it got a lot of gains, you should try this. That way there's instant feedback, it's another way for them to collaborate. We have some wonderful teachers here in this district, so it's just utilizing the resources that we have, highlighting those teachers that do a fantastic job, and then principals giving us information on which teachers have great techniques. So that's where we're at for now. And if you have any questions, please let us know. If not, I gave you a packet that has all the information that's here that we wish to provide the administrators to give to their teachers at professional development. And then the poster will be at each at each school site in a common area. Teachers, if they choose, they can have it in their classroom. If not, they can have a laminated form. That was a big request, the laminated form for their desk, so that when they are preparing their lesson plans, they have something to look and access. So any questions on that note? If not, we are completed.
What's the timeline on this, Cynthia? When will this start to go up?
Well, we're looking at next year. Michael, do you have any specific timelines and dates? I know there's some professional development components to this, so it depends upon the district rollout that Michael Johnson may have.
Yes, we're hoping to have the principals, administrators trained on at least one of the strategies. And then we will roll it out for a quarter. And then we will introduce another strategy on top of the first one. So we'll roll it out, it's a rolling implementation, until we've completed the cycle, along with links, along with videos, along with the training, and along with support at the site level. So the first quarter, wherever we're ready for the first quarter, we're going to roll out, and I believe what you saw is checking for understanding. I believe we'll start with checking for understanding. If that is something that we're able to address district-wide, that would make a big, big difference in terms of moving all of our students to the next level, making sure that all of them move up.
Part of the plan that we have is a single point of access for our staff to share lessons, whether it's video, whether it's hard copies, to really integrate so everybody can do something, and then you can take the best of the best and use that in your lesson, because you have a lot of great resources within our district. That would be our internet issue. There's an internet issue outside sources as well. But we want to have a single point of contact where we can take all our resources through our portal and then be able to grab them down and utilize them. We're looking at a couple of companies that provide that service now, that they've already taken care of all the ability for us to be able to grab this, grab that, and put it into a single point of contact. So that's the goal. That may take a little bit of time to really get to implement fully, but I think the strategies of opening the lesson, checking for understanding, closure, all the things you've heard and talked about will be very easy to put in. I think that will be it. How we do instructional strategies, what the lesson plan looks like, that's what we really want to get in there quickly so that people can share those lesson plans. So it's not just one person created for the one class, but one person can be actually sharing with other people to come up with a more powerful lesson that's going to be beneficial for everybody that has access to it. So, I mean, that's the power of having a lot of good people providing the resources for the rest. And hopefully everybody will join in and not be sitting there waiting for everybody else to do the lesson plans. Because when you create it, nobody knows it better than you, and it probably won't be implemented as well as you do it. Okay, so thank you.
Any other questions from the board or the audience? Well, I thank you for your time, and once again, I apologize for those technical difficulties, but we are committed, completely committed, and under the direct supervision of Michael Johnson and Dr. Nishino, we will be bringing bigger and better things next year. So thank you very much.
The next information item is item K2, the 2011-2012 third quarter Williams/Valenzuela COE activity report.
Let me summarize the report. You have a letter from the county summarizing the report regarding our compliance with the statutes contained in the Ed Code. And if you turn to the back page of that report, 1 to 2nd paragraph, the last sentence, I'd like to read it. In summary, the inspection process found that the students in Ventura County have access to sufficient textbooks and or instructional materials that conditions of school facilities do not pose any emergency or urgent threat to the health or safety of pupils or staff. And then the other conclusion they have made, that's paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Second to the last paragraph, the last sentence. In Ventura County, the documentation review and site visitation process found that post-grade 12 students are notified and provided the opportunity to receive cohesive, intensive instruction and services. So that simply means that the report the county has produced, after looking into our district and our compliance and required statutes, that we met all of them. And this is just information.
Okay, thank you, Michael. With that, we're on to item L, consent items. Items on the consent agenda are considered routine and will be enacted by a single motion. None of the items will be discussed unless a board member or member of the audience requests discussion. With that, I need a motion to approve the consent items. Thank you, David. Thank you, Virginia. First and second, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, the motion carries 5-0. Next, we're on to item M10. Adopt resolution number 11-12-14 to approve level 1 basic developer fee adoption of school fees. And I need a motion to approve. Thank you, Lucy.
Second.
Thank you, Tony. With that, we have a first and a second discussion. Michael?
This is a routine resolution that will permit us to continue charging level 1 fees for new construction in our school district.
Any further discussion, board members? Hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, motion carries 5-0. Item M11, adopt resolution 11-12-15 for approval of teachers who are teaching outside of the credential authorization or on an emergency permit. I need a motion. Thank you, Tony and David. Discussion.
In preparation for summer schools, math, algebra summer bridge, we had applicants, and 3 applicants have units and a background in math but don't have a credential, and so we want to secure as many teachers as possible in preparation for the summer bridge.
Board members, any questions?
Yes, but we're really excited that for the first time we'll be able to provide a program for our students who are either unsuccessful in algebra or have not yet taken algebra and need some boost help in that area. We will start this one during the same day that summer school starts, and that would be June 11th, I believe, on a Wednesday. And then it will end July 13th, I believe, also on a Wednesday. It's a 20-day summer school, intensive summer school, 3 hours a day. And we already have the curriculum put together, and it was put together by Mr. Phil Gonzalez, our consultant, who came in and did a presentation to our staff. We will have the training tomorrow, exposing the curriculum to our staff who are willing to teach, indicated they're willing to teach summer school. So it'll be 20 days, 3 hours a day, and it's a course that will prepare students for algebra and or geometry. We used to have a course that I think UC Santa Barbara provides for us. It has had some success. We know the program that we're implementing, the Bridge program, has had tremendous success up north. And we have no reason to believe that that's going to be any different down here as well.
Thank you, Michael. And other questions, board members? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item M12, adopt resolution number 11-12-16 to approve layoff of classified employees. Need a motion? Thank you, Virginia and Tony. Discussion?
Again, we've talked about budget. It should come as no surprise that the state of California is not funding schools or districts to the point where we need to be funded. Unfortunately, we are in a place of making cuts in order to follow statutory timelines, and where we are in the process of making cuts in the district as a whole. This is another phase, unfortunately, where we're cutting 8 positions in the classified unit. Again, has nothing to do with performance. These are all great employees. We're just in this situation where we're running out of options in order to remain solvent.
Thank you. Any further comments, board members? With that, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, it's 5-0, motion carries. Item number M13, approve alternative governance board findings and recommendations for Fillmore Middle School. Any motion? Okay, Virginia and Lucy, thank you. And discussion?
I'd like to give an overview on the next 3 agenda items. I know the board will consider each of them when they come. As you know, the district has incorporated into its change process the alternative governance board. The board was formed and appointed by the district to take a look at 3 schools in particular in order to address the academic achievement of our students in those 3 schools. We have 5 members of the board, 2 of them from the county-wide, and then 3 of them here in our district. The 2 county-wide representatives are Dr. Michael Babb from the county and Ms. Anna Merriman, who is with us tonight, who will be part of our presentation. She's a retired administrator who just can't quit. She keeps coming back because she knows that she can continue to make a difference. So we appreciate both their input. As 2 outsiders looking within, the members who are administrators in the district consists of Ms. Carol Behringer, and we also have myself and Mr. Todd Shefferman. So those are the 5 members of the board. And we, as part of the AGB process, visited all 3 schools twice, where we looked at each of the schools in depth and interviewed staff, talked to students, and went into the classrooms at least 2 or 3 times for at least 30 minutes in length. We did a visit 2 days in the fall to both elementary schools. They have a smaller staff, and then 3 days at the middle school. We did the same process in the spring, and we looked at the data in the fall, gave them recommendations, all 3 schools, and then between the fall observation and findings, we went back to do informal visits, and then had a final visit in the spring, taking a look at where they were and how much progress they have made towards addressing the findings and the recommendations. So tonight, what you will hear is the result of the second visit. We will present to you the findings, the second findings, and also the second set of recommendations. We will do it in order as they appear in the agenda item. We will start with the middle school, and Ms. Anna Merriman will present that to you, the findings and recommendations. And then the 2 elementary schools, Ms. Carol Behringer will present to you the findings and recommendations. So at this time, I'd like to call on Ms. Anna Merriman to do the presentation for Fillmore Middle School.
Good evening. Before I begin, let me tell you this is the worst kind of teaching you possibly can do, and I'm embarrassed to follow the task force. You gave a great presentation on what you're trying to do, and it's with a lot of pride that I look at Cynthia. She was an outstanding teacher in the Moore Park Unified School District, and it's such fun to see her take on a leadership role, and especially an area that I know are so passionate about. So please forgive me. There's nothing worse than reciting what you have right in front of you, but that's the presentation that we're going to do. Again, I want to reiterate, we have made some informal visits as well as the formal visits to the middle school. And at this point in time, I'd like to commend, where's Ellen? Dr. Green. She has really stepped up in a leadership role that she was somewhat thrust into at the beginning of the year. I'm not sure if she was aware of what an AGB was going to be all about. You are the first district in Ventura County to be courageous enough to take on this process. I think it's going to be a valuable experience for you, and we have a lot of districts that are looking to you to see what's going to happen. And then all of a sudden, Ellen's told not only is she a brand new principal, but now she's got a board she gets to work with too. So, Ellen, you've done just a remarkable job, and I'm very, very pleased with the process. And I have to say that I think a large majority of these commendations will go to a teaching staff that has listened and has really taken them seriously and followed in Ellen's leadership role. So, again, Ellen, I want to say a lot goes to you. When you look at your report, if I could just give you a quick overview. The first visit is when we went in the fall and looked at what was going on. You'll notice it's kind of a purple, gray shading there. That will tell you at the very bottom of your report that those are in progress, that they took our recommendations, they are working on them. And you will see as we go down, some will be highlighted in, I think it'll come up yellowish, or we'll see as we go, but I'll let you know what those mean. So there's the first visit, but if we go down to the second visit, because we're not going to reiterate what we did, but at our second visit, it was definitely evident that there was an increase in student engagement asking the teachers to follow a specific lesson plan template. That's a real risky thing to ask teachers to do because it was somewhat of a mandate to do. And the majority of the teachers took it in stride and did a great job with really looking at the organization of that lesson plan. And because of that, we did definitely see certainly an increase in the engagement of students. Now, the difficult part when you look at engagement is not simply looking at material. You know, kids that are good at that can duck their head and look down and then look engaged. Engagement is really making sure learning is taking place. That's oftentimes difficult to notice. And so it takes a lot of work, and I know Ellen's been going into the rooms over and over and over again to try to identify what engagement is. So engagement is simply not opening a book and looking at it. It's really learning and delving deeper in that. So we really believe that those lesson templates have made some difference. We were a little concerned. There are a few teachers, not many, but there are still a few that have not exactly accepted or graciously embraced lesson plans. And Ellen, again, is working very diligently with them, and that should be her role. So we'll be looking at that again when we work with this next year. So let's move down.
Recommendation.
Oh, I'm sorry. Those were the findings. The recommendations are from the board. Teachers are to continue to develop their lesson plans using the template that we've provided. And Ellen has been strongly advised to be in there to work with those teachers that we did identify that had a lesson plan but were not following it. And we just can't have that. So she's got her work cut out for her. But thankfully, it's not very many. So we were real pleased with that. Our second finding. Can you stop it right there? If you'll see action's been taken is that purplish or pinkish. Pending completion, that'll show up, I think, more in the gray area, and then if it's yellow, it's on hold. And again, I don't want to reiterate that. So as we go through here, if you see that, that's what it means. Our second findings, of course, we were looking at teaching strategies, and I'm so excited that you've got a task force working on that because there's nothing better than showing good lessons. Not being told what to do, but to actually see it happening. That's going to make all the difference in the world. So in our second finding, we saw that the majority of the strategies had increased. We're using Marzano strategies. There are about 9 identified that give you a large effect size. And we did see that when we walked around that they were using more and more of those. Our recommendation is, of course, continue staff development. And I'm just so excited about Cynthia's task force. I think that's just going to be a great way to say to teachers, look on the website. Here's some great lesson plans. Here's the way to do it. We can give you some help. And I just think that's awesome. We want to make sure that during the collaborative staff meetings, that individual teachers should be encouraged to model those lessons because you learn so much more when you can actually see it happening. Our third finding, or our third area. We haven't practiced this, obviously. Finding 3. Okay, keep on. On our finding 3, We are very concerned about the Bloom's taxonomy, and I know you're very familiar with this, but it's really one of the things that have come out of the 21st century learning skills that children need to know how to collaborate, to think, to communicate. Very different from, there's some of you that are close to my age, not many, but you know, back when we were in school, it was regurgitation, memorize and regurgitate. Those skills are no longer really useful for children. They've got to be made to think. And we do that by using the skills that Dr. Bloom had identified a long time ago. So we saw a slight increase, but it is an area that we really want to make sure they are focusing on and identifying in every single lesson that they're moving past what we call information or recall and moving into those areas of evaluation, synthesis. Anytime they get down into that area, they're really stretching those minds that we want them to do. So again, Ellen will be working for that in both the lesson plans that she monitors as well as classroom visits. And we'll be seeing that as we do our official visits. We've done some informal visits, which also I think are helping her in identifying that. On our next finding, we want to make sure that all students are receiving grade level instruction based on the standards that California has identified. As I know you're aware, we're moving into what are called Common Core standards. I'm attending a workshop, as a matter of fact, tomorrow in Ontario on using explicit direct instruction and identifying and addressing those Common Core standards. So we'll be working in the county, trying to provide as much supervision and as much help to our administration so they can help our teachers gain that knowledge. We are, again, just concerned all lessons should be on grade level. We should not be working. That intervention is where you pick up students that need that extra help. And so once again, that falls to Ellen. A lot of work for an administration to do, but we do want to make sure that the fall recommendations of continuing to make sure those are there, are being taught. Our next one is a concern remains in the classroom instruction is not differentiated. We did go into GATE identified classrooms, what we like to call on grade level classrooms. We had some remedial classrooms, some BL classrooms, and we tended to see a lot of the same lessons without a lot of differentiation. And whether that be because they don't know how to differentiate or because they may not see how it fits in a lesson, we did share that with Ellen and would like her to make sure that staff development is made available to teachers so that we can begin to see some higher level learning in those higher level classes, still on grade level, but we want to push them to that level, and then more importantly, making sure those lower level students are getting that rich curriculum that they all deserve. So she'll be working on that again next year too. Our next finding is in the area that evidence that teachers were working collaboratively to implement the common pacing guides. That's first level work. We've got to make sure that every teacher is giving the same standards. They don't teach it the same way, but we want to make sure all children get what we call an implied curriculum so that we can guarantee that all kids have an opportunity to get what they need. And so we want to make sure those pacing guides are in place so that, again, when administration goes in and looks at a classroom, they'll be able to know if the teachers are where they should be, and if not, how can they help them get to that point. So we want to make sure that they are working collaboratively, teachers in their groups, to make sure the pacing guides and the common assessments, most important piece, because if they don't give those common assessments, we don't know if all kids are learning, and then what do we do for those that aren't learning. In their collaborative team meetings, they'll be creating the agendas that will be able to show that they are spending the time working on those standards-based lessons and making sure that data is driving that instruction. Our next finding was again, making sure that the lessons were to the standards, and we did see some positive increases here, and we were very pleased about that, to make sure we jumped from 48 to 77%, to making sure that all teachers were identifying the standards and explaining them to students, so that I would say to you before I did this presentation, By the end of this evening, you will know all the recommendations we are making for the middle school, and then a good teacher at the end of this would say, now I want to remind you of all the recommendations we are making. And so again, this is something that we want to make sure it's not just written on the board, but when you come to my classroom, I'm going to tell you what you're going to learn today. I'm going to make sure you learn it, and then I'm going to make sure at the end of the lesson, I reminded you, so when you go home tonight and mom asks, what did you learn today? And you say, nothing, you'll have an answer. And so we want to make sure that that's being done. But we do expect that every teacher, every single day, make sure students know what the lesson is and to what standard they're being taught. And I don't mean saying today you're going to learn standard 4.2. You need to tell them. Today you're learning about what the AGB board is going to expect from every teacher at Fillmore Middle School. So that's where we are there. And again, you'll see in the recommendations, if you look there for the first visit, a lot of ongoing work. So we're really pleased that they've taken this seriously and they're working on it continuously. When we look at instructional strategies that are working, one of the things that we're real concerned about is direct instruction. That's the teacher giving specific lessons, information, meaningful information, and then helping them with some guided practice to learn it. And as we documented in the time on task, it was noted that direct instruction and guided practice decreased and independent and group work significantly increased. Now remember, this is just a one-day snapshot. The two of those together, and I know Michael and I have had a lot of conversation about this, even though there was a decrease in direct instruction and more group work with the teacher, that's not necessarily a bad thing in one day. The two of those combined were a significant amount of time spent in good instruction. And so we put in there, well, this increase in independent group work with teachers is significant. Research indicates, of course, direct instruction in combination with group work with the teacher is more effective teaching strategy. So we want to make sure that that continues to remain there and that the independent and group work with the teacher must reflect the rigor of the standard. Pumping it up there. So again, our recommendation was to continue to implement the previous recommendations, which are up there. Bell-to-bell teaching, making sure the lesson plans are monitoring, and I'm having a hard time reading that. And it's also part of their monthly collaboration, so they'll continue those recommendations with that particular strategy. Our next one is we want to look at the grading policy. We have found some discrepancies in grading, and if you ever want to see a hot topic, just say to a teacher, should you grade homework? And I would think all of my former colleagues out there who are now principals, who were teachers, I bet we'd all have a different little idea about should we grade homework? Should we give homework? Should it be corrected? And so that was an area that we looked at very carefully. We've asked Ellen to take a look at all of the grading policies, and our recommendation was that maybe a task force needs to be formed. And I think you have it at the district level, but also looking at the middle school level, are there specific things at that level that should be common to the school? So that would be something that we are going to begin to look at and ask it for it to be done by June of 2013. I'm sorry, I think this is the textbook one.
Yeah.
Okay, and we that one I think we feel very strongly about, that we needed no further action on that. Students were bringing their textbook, they had plenty of them in class, so we were good to go with that particular recommendation. AR has been a program that has been very active at the middle school. What our concern was the amount of time that was being taken away from direct instruction using that program. So I think if you remember on our first, would you be able, Carol, to scroll down just again on the first recommendation. We really thought about and asked you to look at the time being spent. Was that worth the loss of direct instruction? And the recommendations that we've given the teachers, they are working very, very diligently on. And our recommendation was that it be completely eliminating the incorporation of AR from the classroom appears to be impractical, we know that. So in collaboration with the English Language Arts Department and the principal, they worked out a 30-minute weekly library schedule to continue to check out books. We want children to do that, but not at the expense of direct instruction. So we've asked them to review the practice again to determine the effectiveness. We always want to look at the data to see if it's worth the amount of time we're spending, so we've asked them to do that. The Opportunity Program, again, that's a very philosophical issue, and I bet if I ask all of you again what you think about the Opportunity Programs, we'd all have some different ideas, but we really felt at the middle school that those children in that program would benefit more by being in classrooms where they had strong role models that showed what good students look like, how they produce in the classrooms, and we strongly encourage them to consider eliminating that program. And I believe the principal has agreed to that and has gone along with that recommendation for next year. The master calendar has reflected our AGB requirements, our recommendations, and again, working with the principal, it's just been a real joy to have us really be in concert with what needs to be done for specific areas. And again, you've seen those recommendations. So we're again supporting this principal's recommendation about the master schedule for next year. We ought to make sure, of course, it meets legal mandates and that Todd can find teachers to do it. I think that's it. And I think we have the final. Thank you very much. We are concerned about EL strategies. The implementations have been somewhat inconsistent within the classrooms. And so again, we want to continue on to focus on the recommendations made during the first visit to make sure that those strategies are really understood and known by the staff and making sure they are implemented in the classroom. And we also want to make sure that the ELD pacing guide is in place and ready to go.
Sorry,
and then finally, yes.
I'm sorry, could you go back to the previous one?
I'm sorry, the previous one?
The previous, yes. Yeah. We had some questions from the board.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. There was a little discussion over here. I just wanted to make sure that people had an opportunity to
sure.
talk about it.
You want to go further up so you see the
Sure.
Go
up to the top, see what was the, there we go, right there. Let's see.
This was the first finding in the recommendation.
Okay, the first finding was that that students were only receiving a half year in the earth science. Okay. And so those were the recommendations that we made, and if you'll notice, those are in, what color is that?
Green.
It's the green, so they are in progress. It shows a different color from your screen to this screen. So they looked at the master schedule, and they worked on that particular process to make sure it was meeting the state guidelines.
And we put PE and earth science in place.
And they're still working on that because they, staffing and credentialing issues are things that need to be worked out. So we still don't know if this is going to happen. But the critical piece is that kids will have science every day for, whatever the length of the period is.
And the board,
before they alternated, one day they'll have PE, another day science. So they're only getting science half a year. Right. What happens is that compounds, because once they get to the high school, they do not have enough vocabulary that's needed to be successful in science, especially at the high school level of biology that they now have to engage in. So
and we also wanted to make sure it met Ed code requirement too. That was a concern of ours, so we did ask for that too.
Yeah. Other questions?
No, I'm just concerned with the sixth grade not having an elective, but if
they are. They're having an elective.
Yeah.
They will.
Okay.
I don't know how to phrase this question. So I don't want to hit you with a rock or anything. When you were going back to the reading program, we're experiencing a little bit of conflict or disagreement between the middle school and the high school, because you guys have moved the reading program outside, and the high school, it's always been a concern of mine, that they're actually using instructional time for like independent reading, You want to respond to that for the secondary level?
Anna really cannot respond to that. I'm not
I give you my opinion, but I don't think
that's even happening. We've had some conversation with the high school principal in that area. That hasn't been resolved yet. And the high school is not under AGB, but we're looking at that as well. Yeah.
And it's important not to confuse AR with reading instruction, because reading instruction looks very different than an AR program. AR program is a great program, don't get me wrong.
No, I like it too, but sometimes when I walk by a classroom and I see the kids are independently reading an AR book, then my first thought is instructional time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just wondering where we were going with that. So you've already talked about it.
It's well taken.
You know, and how we reconcile that is longer school days isn't going to happen.
Well, I think, and the other thing too, I mean, going off of what Dave's saying, I think it's important that across secondary schools that we're consistent, because if we're going to say that we don't want AR as part of the instructional day, that's great, but let's make sure we're being consistent across the board so that we're not sending a confusing message out to our parents that, oh, while they're in middle school, there's no AR during the bell time. But they get to the high school and, okay, now it's part of, our philosophy changes, and now it's okay to do AR reading during the bells. So I think that's
exactly.
Okay, so we want to make sure that from our level, that we're not being inconsistent, because we just want to make sure, even if a school is not in AGB, we still have to, set a consistent policy. And I want to make sure that message, I know for me, that's a very clear thing that we want to make sure we're being consistent.
See, we kind of approached it the other way because they had been a PI school for such a long time. Direct instruction has to be the focus of almost the
But still, if you go if you're looking at
we're agreeing with that, by the way.
And if there's a teacher who is using up 10 minutes or 5 minutes a period, a day for AR during instructional time, that adds up to 30 minutes or 40 or 50 minutes of the week. I have a problem with that.
We'll continue to address that and work with the high school principal.
Well, I got a question then, since it was brought up.
Hi, Mr. Prado, how are you? So we're on the other side of the table. I used to be Tony's boss, and now I guess you're one of my boss now.
I wouldn't go that far.
Okay. So I don't have to be good to him then.
No.
Yeah, it's just Tony.
They get mad because I would always talk about that more part that, I get those groans. But my question is, one, because you're a former high school, I'm putting you in the spot. Okay. Because you were a former high school principal, and you were a former assistant superintendent of curriculum at Moore Park Unified School District, and now you're working with the county, and you said you had an opinion about AR at the high school level. Could you give us a quick opinion?
Well, again, John, I hope I'm not stepping on your toes either, but,
This is a trap.
I know it is. So I'll get the big picture, but you know how important reading is, but you read in every subject area. So if my wish, my dream, is that every curriculum teacher becomes a reading teacher. The social science teacher needs to be a reading teacher. The math teacher needs to be a reading teacher. There's certain things we can teach kids consistently that when you open the chapter, what's the first thing we do? And all of you have been trained in this. We look at the headings, we look at the pictures, we read the captions. I wish everybody would do that, because I think that kind of instruction is much more meaningful than you come to my room one time a week or one time a day and we focus on reading. You read all the time. Now, when you look at the new Common Core standards, and I know I'm speaking to the choir here, the reading is very different. We still are a literature-based reading educational program, and that's just not Fillmore, that's across the state. But when you look at what you and I do day in and day out, I wished I could sit down with Shakespeare and read him during the day. But I don't. I read manuals, I read articles, I read notices, I read memos. Those are the things that take up my reading, and I better know how to do that. So they're going to look very different, and I know, again, the principals are well aware that our reading is going to look different. So I think we have to address it that way, Tony. How do we get everybody to make sure all kids are reading and know how to read? And then what kind of interventions can we give them before school and after school to shore up those that don't have it? But reading definitely is looking different.
Implementation is 2014 or 2015?
2014. Well, we'll see with the governor's budget. Who knows what they're going to do? But in most of the states in the United States, that'd be 2014. But then they spend $15,000 per student. Put that in the newspaper. I'm sorry. Okay, that wasn't very nice, but I was lucky enough to go to California schools when we were #1. And it's because of California schools that I stand here today. And I feel so bad for kids that don't have that opportunity, because I never would have had it not been for California schools. My parents didn't have the ability nor the financial resources for it. I was lucky enough to go to state schools and to be able to lead a fairly successful life. And it's because of California schools, so I'm sickened by what's happening. Yeah, now our final. Okay, yeah, wait, I'm not quite sure. This has to do with
collaboration.
Oh, okay, and I know Ellen's working on that, and I know we found that that she's documented all departments and she's looking at those minutes and reading it, so we just said please continue to do that. And then what are our final recommendations on there? And then finally, I'm not going to read this to you. Please do read it in your minutes, because this tells you what we did and what we looked at. But at the very bottom, this is the summary of our recommendations and what our next steps will be. And it's due to the growth in addressing the HEB recommendations, we'll implement the following visitation plans for the next school year. With several ongoing informal visits. Those are the most meaningful. When Ellen and I drop into classrooms, we really see, when Ellen drops into classrooms daily, she really sees what's going on. When she brings an extra set of eyes, we can kind of kibitz about that. Formal is everybody knows you're coming, and that's my best foot forward. But those informal are very important. We'll continue to do that. We put in one formal visit. We may look at two, and I'm hoping we're going to be able to do that. And because I'd like to do a fall and a spring again, I think it gives us a wonderful sense. And depending on how the CSTs look, I have no doubt they're going up. I have no doubt they're going up. But I think we need to validate that with our teachers and tell them that this is what we saw. And then based on our data, there are a few personnel barriers that are going on in the school, and the recommendation is that there should be some limiting restructuring at the site that will be based on the principal's recommendation, and that would be our recommendation as the board. And again, I want to commend Ellen and the staff for doing a remarkable job of really taking a look at these recommendations and taking them to heart. Okay? Thank you.
We're both 49ers. Yeah. We went to school together. We were there at the same time. We're classmates.
Thank you. And if you don't mind, I'm going to excuse myself. I have to be in Ontario at 8 in the morning for this conference.
Thank you very much.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. Good job, Ellen and Cynthia. So proud of them.
Yeah, you can leave the mic.
Okay, so it's here.
Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
Finding number 1, high school. We looked at.
Hold on, we need to get a vote on this. A vote. We need a vote on this. It's a bit. Can I have that real quick? Okay, board members, any further comments or questions about the Alternative Governance Board's findings and recommendations for the Fillmore Middle School? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries 5-0. Next, we're on to item number 14. Approve Alternative Governance Board findings and recommendations for San Cayetano School. Need a motion? Thank you, Lucy.
Second.
Dave, thank you. And with that, back to you, Carol.
Oh, it's Tony done.
Oh, was that Tony? Sorry. That's okay. She didn't hear you. She didn't hear you.
So we visited San Cayetano in the spring, and finding number 1 dealt with the lessons that we observed and the rigor of the lessons that went to Marzano. They worked on some things they're still going to work on, but the finding was a review of the lesson plans indicated that a few of the teachers identified in their lesson plans one of Bloom's higher order thinking skills. And this just goes to the fact that teachers need more experience. However, we noted that in the lesson plans, they lacked explicit connection between the stated standard and the content of the lesson. One of the lesson plans stated that it was analysis, when in fact it was comparison. So they're working on that, they're getting staff development in that, they're moving forward on that. But it's hard, it's just hard. So we're recommending to the board that they continue the above recommendations, including the development of common assessments, formative and summative, analyzing the data through DataWise to make informed decisions concerning their instructional practices. Finding 2 had to do with direct instruction and the quality of direct instruction. The finding was, we noted that explicit direct instruction was absent in 41% of the lessons as compared to 10% last fall. So there was a drop. And so our recommendation is that a strong focus is required in this area.
So it actually got worse.
Yes, in that one day we were there, it got worse. It dropped. We looked at whether learning goals had been posted in the classroom, and this also includes the explanation of the learning goal. We found no change between the fall and the spring in the explicit learning goal. So our recommendation is a strong emphasis on lesson objectives explicitly stated in the lesson plan and in the classroom presentation continues to be required. All lessons must feature activities that connect to the stated standard-based objective. This is looking at Bloom's taxonomy. We noted that in the fall, they were at the knowledge and comprehension level. When we looked at it in the spring, it showed that analysis, synthesis, and evaluation were 20% in the fall, 18% in the spring. It's negligible. It's not really a drop. It would be if it were larger. In other words, 80% of the lessons did not require students to think above the knowledge, comprehension, or application level. And half of those never went beyond knowledge. So our recommendation, significant growth in the application of analysis, synthesis, and evaluation in classroom lessons is imperative, and that's going to be professional staff development. We looked at the English learner strategies, noted that they were infrequently used in the regular classroom. We did our spring visit and noted that evidence of choral, group, and partner and interactive work rose from 55% in the fall to 76%, so a dramatic rise. Other strategies, checking for understanding, study guides and outlines, highlighted, summarized text, occurred in fewer than half of the class. So yes, they did that choral and group partner interactive work wonderfully well. They knew that strategy, the other strategies they need to focus on. So our recommendation is continue to incorporate strategies to support English learners in every lesson. And to begin to utilize coaching to promote that rigor and support English learners. So now we're dealing with the research-based strategies, and as you noted, it was would have been the checking for understanding those strategies, and they have made progress in addressing the recommendation. The principal provided professional development to the staff on effective teaching strategies. and we could look at documentation that was provided on that to us, as well as classroom observation data. So our recommendation is to continue to address those recommendations that were made previously, and that the principal needs to monitor instruction to make sure it's happening, and provide feedback to teachers that is relevant to this recommendation. We talked about instructional minutes not matching required state minutes in the framework, and so we addressed that. So the spring visit, not all students are given the State Board of Education required instructional time in English, language arts, math, ELD, social studies, science, or PE. So the recommendation, all staff will be required to begin the 2012-2013 school year with a schedule that is aligned to those required instructional time in those areas, in particular English, language arts, ELD, math, and PE with the inclusion of science and social studies, and that will be monitored. So this is the budget and how it directly supports the academic plan at the school. And so categorical budgets have been used to provide professional development, and we saw that happening. They've been good about putting things in place for teachers. The recommendation is that funds continue to be allocated towards staff development. And personnel expenditures must be designated toward hiring highly qualified certificated teachers to support students during target times, intervention, or RTI. The staff mentioned this as well, but we also noted that there was very little vertical articulation taking place between grade levels. They actually mentioned it when they were talking to us, and that their grade level collaboration didn't really focus on data. So we talked to them in the spring, and they indicated that horizontal and vertical articulation doesn't always occur. In fact, vertical articulation hadn't occurred at all this year, and that it wasn't always focused or structured, and certainly not routine. So recommendation in the 2012-2013 school year, calendar horizontal and vertical articulation meetings at least 3 times a year with agendas and norms in place that make the work gets done. Finding 10 was a thoughtfully prepared lesson plan and the importance of lesson plans. And it was noted that not all teachers turned in lesson plans on a regular basis, and that was according to according to the principal's direction. The recommendation: continue to prepare lesson plans on the AGB template, provide them to the principal as required in a timely manner, and implement lesson plans in the classroom as designed, because sometimes the lesson plans we saw were not the lesson plans that were written. Finding 11, special education was being over-identified, and so we looked at the report from the special education department, and the amount of referrals is decreased, which means they're using the RTI process, student study teams. All of those things are put in place to help keep those kids in the regular program. So the recommendation: continue to monitor the referral process for special education to ensure that appropriate interventions are being implemented before the referrals are made. We looked at the analysis of all of the data that we collected, and that's what this piece is. There are some strengths there and some weaknesses there, so you are going to want to read that. But the recommendation and next step is as follows. Overall, AGB's review of data from classroom observations as well as conversations with teachers reflects an ongoing concern that not all teachers have high expectation of
of student ability and of their own efficacy as teachers to make a difference in student achievement. So teachers just don't always think they really can do it. Equally significant, while there was growth and a realization that change must be made on the part of a few teachers, AGB noted that a systemic change has not occurred at this site this year. Consequently, AGB recommends 2 formal visits and several informal visits during the 2012-13 school year, and also recommends a school-wide restructuring based on the principal's recommendation.
Thank you, Carol. Any questions, board members? With that, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, motion carries 5-0. With that, we're on to item M15, approval of alternative governance board findings and recommendations for Piru School. I need a motion. Okay, Virginia and Tony. Thank you. And with that, we're on to back to you, Carol.
All right, so we also visited Piru. The first finding dealt with teaching and grade level standards and the fact that they weren't always taught at the rigor expected. The principal and staff did provide evidence that they've begun to address the activities of this action plan, and you can see the action plan above as you go through. Staff will participate in professional development to unpack standards so they understand them, and they will begin these follow-up activities on May 17th. So it's going to start this year. They're not waiting for next year. And the recommendation to the board is to continue to address the previous recommendations and the response to the recommendations that the school put in place. Finding 2 deals with direct instruction and high-quality teaching. The principal and staff provided evidence that the lesson sequence professional development was carried out. Teachers discussed lesson sequence in collaborative team meetings. There was evidence that they had talked about brain theory and differentiation. So the recommendation to the board, staff requires additional professional development on the appropriate use of technology as it relates to explicit direct instruction, so next step. This one was about the learning goals and being used in a meaningful manner. There was a significant increase in teachers discussing the proficiency expectations when we went through the classrooms. A number of activities in the action plan have started to address this finding, and we saw it. However, there are lessons that were taught below grade level and did not address grade level standards in some of the walkthroughs that we did.
Has any work, Carol, been done towards got a headache almost.
Yes, you mean
calibrating. I'm talking about calibrating student work.
Meeting in data teams.
Yeah.
I think that's the next level that they're working toward, and I think next year, and principals can correct me if I'm wrong, I think things are being put in place this year that will lead to looking at data, and that will mean eventually calibrating that data and then planning lessons and helping each other institute things in the classroom that will raise the rigor in the classroom. And that, I believe, is coming. So we're continuing to address this recommendation. This was Bloom's taxonomy, knowledge and comprehension level. They did provide documentation that indicated activities were being implemented. We also observed a slight increase in Bloom's higher order thinking skills in our walkthroughs. So our recommendation is just to continue staff development so teachers can develop these and refine these skills, because it does take a lot of practice. English learner strategies used infrequently. We verified that many of the recommended activities occurred, resulting in a slight increase in those strategies. So our recommendation is just to begin to implement the ELD pacing guides when they become available. In addition, as ELD curriculum is solidified, and we've been working on getting that curriculum in place, then they will begin to implement daily ELD lessons. They want to use a coaching model. So I think that one's the next steps are already there and in line and ready to go. Research-based teaching strategies. There was evidence that they're beginning to implement these strategies in the classroom. The principal is on the Instructional Strategies Task Force, and that's going back to the site. So the recommendation to the board is just to ensure continued progress in this recommendation. This was an instructional minutes one that we talked about previously. And we acknowledge that activities described to address this recommendation have resulted in a modification to the daily schedule. And it closely conforms to state requirements. So the recommendation to the board, the principal and staff will implement the proposed district grade level schedule when it becomes available. This is a budget. This is back to the budget supporting the academic priorities. So our finding when we walked through, and we changed this finding based on the fact that instead of the task force we recommended, the principal decided to develop a plan for a response to intervention program using certificated staff that meets the needs of all students and can be supported by the site's categorical budget. So the details of the plan are included in the school's single plan for student achievement, and it will be submitted to you, so you will have the recommendations of the principal in that plan. The recommendation to the board, funding made available as a result of eliminating the 2 positions should be used to support student learning as reflected in the school plan. Funds will be allocated to provide staff development and or to fund highly qualified teachers to support students. This also dealt with vertical articulation, and they actually planned a cross-level articulation meeting for May 31st. So the recommendation is to calendar the 3 dates for a cross and vertical level articulation meetings next year.
Carol, I have a question. Can we go back to finding number 8? Where it says funds will be allocated to provide staff development and or to fund highly qualified teachers to support students. Now, when we, as a board, I assume we're going to approve this, is this sending a direct message to the school site, the principal, the teachers, and the school site council? What do you call it? Yeah, the school site council. That we highly recommend that they follow through with this particular item?
Yes, I think it does. I think they know that what we call RTI teachers at some sites, or target teachers or intervention teachers, are expected to be highly qualified, which means they're now going to be expected to be certificated. This is about lesson plans. So overall, we saw a significant improvement in the quality of the lesson plans in Piru. So the recommendation to the board continue to ensure that the lesson plan as designed is implemented accordingly. They did a great job in that area. This was also about the special education where they exceeded the cap. And they also looked at what they were doing, and they put some activities in that implemented an improvement in their Tier 1 RTI strategies, and they've begun data collection that's evident. So there's been a significant decrease in their referrals to the special ed, for special ed assessment. So the findings here, the recommendation here is revisiting bullet 3 to determine whether this plan is appropriately placed with this finding, and that refers to the above section. There were some recommendations in there, a response to our recommendations, and one didn't seem to fit. Finding 12, we looked at the 6th grade out in Piru and looked at their scores and a lot of other things. They did put a task force in place and conducted a study, and a recommendation was made to transfer the 6th graders back to the middle school. The recommendation to the board: accept the site recommendation and submit it to the governing board for approval. So once again, all of their data is right there. And the summary: AGP's review of data from the classroom observations as well as conversations with teachers reflect an ongoing concern that a few teachers appear to have low expectations, and also the efficacy as teachers to make a difference. However, overall, growth has been evident toward addressing the AGP's recommendations. Therefore, AGP recommends the following visitation plan for 2012-2013 school year: several ongoing informal visits throughout the year, culminating in one formal visit in the spring. And this may be revised to include a fall formal visit contingent upon the school's CST results from 2011-2012 school year.
Thank you, Carol. Board members, any questions or comments regarding these recommendations and findings? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries 5-0. Okay, with that, we're on to item N16, student expulsion. We met in closed session to consider case number 11-12-18. Do I have a motion for that case?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we accept the recommendation of the staff on student 11-12-18.
Okay, is there a second? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Abstentions. Okay, the motion carries 3-0-2, and to accept the recommendation of case number 11-12-18. That would be Virginia and Tony.
That's due to not being
there. They were absent during the presentation. Okay, with that, we're on to item O, which is future meetings, June 5th, June 19th, and June 26th. Closed session meetings here at the boardroom at 5 p.m. followed by the 6:30 regular meeting. Anybody not going to be able to attend those meetings?
The 19th.
So Lucy, you will not be able to make the 19th. Virginia, are you okay with those?
I
know people will be taking vacations, so.
Lucy's not.
I think I'm leaving the 27th of June, but yeah, I think I'm okay.
It's a good thing. Okay. Dave or Lucy, how you guys doing? Or Tony, I should say.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I'll be here now.
Okay.
I should.
Great. So far we only have Lucy out on the 19th. Okay, great. Item P, board closing comments and agenda building. Board members, any comments about any of the things we reviewed today?
Well, I just want to thank the efforts of the
HEB board. I have a headache.
No, it's ditto for me also. I know it's been a lot of work, a lot of time spent on all of these changes, and also for the staff at each of the schools, accepting the changes and at least trying to move forward for the kids. So it is appreciated. I know that this week, Teacher Staff Appreciation Week, that we just want to thank everybody for all the work and always putting the kids first.
Just ditto what everybody says. I can't say it enough, but just everything staff has done, all the work that go into all the reports and the presentations that you've all done for us. So, thank you.
Yeah, just a quick comment. Just echoing what they're saying, but also noting the fact that it's pretty amazing that despite the fact that we've had all these cuts, we're taking 10 less days or getting paid for 10 less days of work. The amount of work is still there. And really the staff, the administration, they've all risen to the challenge of still doing what's best for kids. And I mean, you're really all to be commended for that. And it doesn't go unnoticed. I mean, we certainly appreciate it. You know, every one of the board members up here, we know people personally in the district. We have friends that work for the district. We have friends that are in the administration. We know the kind of sacrifices you all have to make, both financially and on a time basis, to make these committees and to make these changes. So I, for one, I really appreciate it. I know that it's tough. I know that people are challenging all kinds of things all the time. And we have to keep focused on the big picture, which is getting our kids moving forward, getting our schools moving forward. And you guys have risen to that challenge, and I just want to thank you.
I want, of course, to thank my staff for being here. The principals had another long day. They've had long days since I've been here. And I feel a little guilty, just a little bit. A little guilty. But no, I don't yet. And I guess the salvation that I have is when I see the kids at school and really wanting to do well, and how you encourage your teachers encourage the kids to do their best. Always wanted just people to do their best. And I said that when I talked to the 10th grade class. It doesn't matter what you do, be the best at what you do. It doesn't matter what job you're in, be the best at that job. And whether you own a business, whether you're a gardener, a carpenter, you pump gas, you're a teacher, it doesn't matter. Be the best one that's out there. And if you do that, you'll be successful in life. And I really appreciate my principals for going through this and supporting each other. Yeah, I've been in 4 districts with different administrators. This is a very good administrative team that work hard together. They plan together, they spend extra hours together, they're collaborating, they're trying to come out with the best solution for our kids, and I appreciate that. And one day, you'll have a student like I had the other day come back and thank you for all your hard work. It doesn't happen often. It happens usually when you're a teacher. Rarely does it happen when you're an administrator, because you want to move in that contact. So when you get, it will happen. And when it does, you'll put a twinkle in your eye and a smile on your face, and you'll say, that's why I do this. And so I really do appreciate you, and some of you who are making changes, right? John Wilbur will be going to Mount Vista, Chrissy Sheffield will be going to San Cayetano, and we're opening the position for high school principal, and really do appreciate your dedication to making the moves that we had to do. So I want to thank you personally on TV, in front of the audience. So thank you very much. I want to thank the board for your dedication as well, not only being here late, but the comments you make. I don't think board members really know just how important it is for administrators to stop looking at your clock, your watch, Chrissy, to stop thinking of it, to really, here I go. You don't realize just how important it is for us to hear your positive comments. It makes a huge difference every time I come to work, every time I know my administrators come to work. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Dr. Nishino. And with that, I need a motion to adjourn to closed session. What's that? Yeah, we have closed session.
No, we're gonna do it.
So moved, thank you, Dave. Is there a second? Okay, thank you, Lucy. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, we're going to go into closed session.